Some tractors become legends. Others, they become cautionary tales whispered in repair shops and auction houses across America. Today, we're talking about iron that promised the world but delivered headaches, breakdowns, and empty wallets. These are the tractors that made grown men cry, sent dealers running for cover, and taught us all that sometimes innovation comes with a hefty price tag. Let's count down 10 American tractors that farmers loved to hate. Number 10, Long 610. Long Manufacturing out of North Carolina tried to bring affordable power to American farms in the 1970s and 80s with their 610 model. Built by UTB in Romania, using old Fiat designs, these tractors seemed like a bargain at first glance. The 610 packed a 64 horsepower diesel engine and came in around half the price of comparable domestic models. But you get what you pay for. The first one started blowing oil out of the breather at 20 hours. The dealer replaced it with another new tractor, which constantly had issues with oil leaks, linkages falling apart. The starter went out and was tough to find parts for, even when the tractor was only a couple years old. Power steering systems leaked constantly, with many farmers resorting to filling them with used motor oil just to keep working. The real killer was support infrastructure. Import tractor parts became one of the few reliable sources for components, but local mechanics wouldn't touch these machines. At around 500 hours, the oil pressure light started coming on at idle and gradually got to the point where you would have to keep it at half throttle to keep the light off. Manuals were poorly translated Romanian to English disasters that created more confusion than clarity. The 610 taught American farmers a hard lesson about false economy. Sure, you save money up front, but when you're stranded mid-harvest with no replacement parts available within 500 miles, that bargain price becomes irrelevant. By the late 80s, most 610S were either cannibalized for parts or rusting behind barns, monuments to the idea that cheap and cheerful doesn't work in American agriculture. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Thanks to all of you who do. Number 9, Mahindra 4110. Mahindra entered the American market in the 2000s promising reliable, affordable compact tractors. The 4110, a 41 horsepower utility tractor, was marketed as the perfect machine for small farms and rural properties. Built in India with supposedly proven technology, it looked like a smart alternative to premium-priced domestic brands. The reality was far different. PTO engagement problems plagued these machines. From day one, the clutch would slip, shudder, or refuse to engage entirely. Cold starting was a nightmare, with many owners reporting their tractors simply wouldn't fire up below 40 degrees, even with block heaters. The electrical system seemed designed for a different planet, with components failing randomly and wiring harnesses deteriorating within months. The three-point hitch struggled with implements half its rated capacity. Hydraulic pumps whined and groaned before giving up entirely. Sheet metal was so thin that normal use left dents and cracks. The loader, if equipped, moved with all the urgency of cold molasses, taking forever to raise even empty buckets. Dealer network promises evaporated quickly. Many dealers dropped the line after warranty claim nightmares, leaving owners stranded. Parts availability varied wildly between dealers, and service manual accuracy was questionable at best. Forums filled with desperate owners trying to find basic maintenance items like filters and belts. The 4110 proved that entering the American market requires more than just shipping tractors across the ocean. It requires understanding how American farmers use equipment, establishing robust support networks, and building machines that can handle diverse conditions. Mahindra eventually improved their offerings, but early adopters of the 4110 paid the price for being beta testers. Number 8, Belarus 825. When the Cold War ended, someone had the bright idea to import Soviet-designed Belarus tractors to America. The 825, an 82-horsepower machine built in Minsk, arrived in the 1980s and 90s, promising Eastern Bloc toughness at bargain prices. What farmers got was a masterclass in cultural incompatibility. These tractors were built like tanks literally. Everything was overbuilt, heavy, and crude. The clutch required a leg press champion's strength to operate. Controls were placed seemingly at random, with critical functions hidden behind panels or in locations that defied logic. The gear pattern made no sense to American operators, and the brakes, well, they were more suggestions than commands. Starting procedures involved bizarre rituals. The manual, translated from Russian by someone who clearly spoke neither language well, contained gems like rotate starting lever to position of maximum joy and engage clutch with authority of tractor operator. Wiring diagrams looked like abstract art, using Soviet-era symbols that no American mechanic recognized. Ergonomics were apparently considered Western decadence. The seat was a medieval torture device that transmitted every bump directly to your spine. The steering wheel was positioned for someone with arms like a gorilla. Visibility was terrible, noise levels were punishing, and the heating system either froze you or cooked you with no middle ground. Finding service was impossible. Dealers who took them on quickly regretted it. Parts had to be ordered from Eastern Europe, taking months if they arrived at all. Filters, belts, and hydraulic fittings used metric sizes unknown in America. The 825 proved that building a tough tractor isn't enough, it has to work within the system where it's sold. Number 7, Case IH 9180. When Case IH rolled out the 9180 in the late 1980s, it seemed formidable. The Cummins 855 engine delivered 335 horsepower through a full powershift transmission. This four-wheel drive articulated giant was built for serious acres. It was Case IH's statement that they could compete in the high horsepower market. Quality control turned that statement into a question mark. That driveline noise is normal. Some gears can be changed to ones with a different angle, like the newer ones, to eliminate the noise. The articulation joint where the tractor pivots wore prematurely. If they're kept greased, they last a very long time. But that meant daily maintenance with an electric grease gun hitting multiple zerks that were nearly inaccessible. Hydraulic systems develop personalities. Some days they worked perfectly, others they'd lose pressure randomly. Steering feedback was virtually non-existent. Operators described it like steering through pudding. The cab suffered from terrible ergonomics, with controls scattered illogically, switches that required removing gloves to operate, and a seat that never seemed to adjust right for anyone. The most frustrating aspect was inconsistency between units. Some 9180S ran for thousands of hours with minimal issues, while others seemed to live at the dealership. Buying a used one was gambling with your harvest. Farmers were advised to avoid feedlot tractors and standard transmission models, as these typically showed the worst wear. By the time Case IH acquired Steiger and learned how to properly build articulated four-wheel drives, the 9180's reputation was cemented. Auction prices reflected farmer confidence. These traded for thousands less than comparable Steigers or Versatiles with similar hours. The 9180 proved that horsepower without reliability is just expensive noise. Number 6, Oliver 1855. Oliver's 1855 debuted in 1969 as their flagship row crop tractor. With 92 PTO horsepower from a turbocharged Waukesha 310 diesel, it wore Oliver's distinctive meadow green paint with pride. The company positioned it against John Deere's 4,320 and International's 826, claiming superior power and efficiency. The Waukesha engine destroyed that claim. The biggest problem with the 310 diesel was that they had a two-piece wrist pin bushing that tended to get mashed out the sides, and that they needed an oil cooler and a deeper oil pan. These engines literally cooked themselves to death. Oliver continually dealt with overheating problems. If a farmer was trying to finish a field before dark and ran hard too many times, it often ended badly. Oil pressure issues developed early and progressively worsened. Head gaskets failed with depressing regularity. Cracked heads were so common that some dealers kept rebuilt heads in stock. The 1955 crankcase had a provision for the oil cooler where the 1855 did not, thus it cannot be added to the 1855, meaning owners couldn't even retrofit the necessary cooling system. When problems arose, farmers discovered Oliver's support network was evaporating. The company merged with White, then struggled financially. leaving dealers without technical support or parts supply. Many 1855 owners became amateur engineers, fabricating their own solutions to keep their tractors running. The 1855 should have carried Oliver's banner into the 1970s. Instead, it became a symbol of the company's decline. A well-intentioned machine undermined by a fundamentally flawed power plant. Farmers learned that turbocharging without proper supporting systems was a recipe for disaster. Most 1,855s were retired early, victims of their own hot-running hearts. Number 5, Massey Ferguson, 1155. Massey Ferguson's 1155 arrived in the mid-1970s wearing the company's signature red and gray paint, boasting a Perkins V8 diesel rated at 141 horsepower. On paper, it looked impressive, more power than a John Deere 4630, priced competitively, with Massey's global reputation backing it up. The Perkins V8 was the 1155's Achilles heel. While Perkins built excellent inline engines, this V8 was a different animal entirely. It ran scorching hot even in moderate conditions. The cooling system, adequate for European conditions, couldn't handle American summer heat combined with heavy draft loads. Operators watched temperature gauges climb into the red zone with alarming frequency. Under heavy tillage work, the engine struggled to maintain power. What started strong in the morning became increasingly sluggish as heat built up. Fuel consumption was outrageous. Farmers joked you needed a fuel truck following the 1155 around the field. The distinctive V8 sound was impressive, but farmers quickly learned that sound meant problems. The rest of the tractor wasn't much better. The transmission, while functional, required perfect timing to shift smoothly. Miss your moment, and gears ground in protest. The hydraulics were sluggish, struggling to lift implements the tractor supposedly had enough power to pull. Electrical gremlins haunted many units, with alternators and starters having remarkably short lifespans. By 1980, most 1,155s were traded for anything else. Auction values plummeted as word spread about their issues. Massey Ferguson's reputation in the American big tractor market never recovered. The 1155 proved that raw horsepower means nothing if it comes with reliability problems and excessive operating costs. Farmers wanted dependable workhorses, not temperamental thoroughbreds. Number 4, Allis-Chalmers 440. Allis-Chalmers was fashionably late to the articulated four-wheel drive party. By 1972, every major manufacturer had big four-wheel drives except them. Their solution? Don't build one, have someone else do it. Based on the Steiger Bearcat, the Allis-Chalmers 440 was one of the first models that Steiger had ever built for somebody else. The marriage was troubled from the start. While Steiger's Bearcat used a reliable Caterpillar 3208, when Allis-Chalmers was working with Steiger to spec out the 440, they tested two engines, the 3208 Cat and the Cummins V8555. AC chose the Cummins, creating immediate problems. The triple nickel V8 ran hot, leaked oil, and demanded perfect maintenance. Its width created cooling airflow problems the inline Cat didn't have. The Fuller 10-speed transmission required double clutching and perfect timing. Get it wrong under load, and you grind gears, or worse, get stuck between them unable to move. Steering was heavy enough to qualify as an upper body workout. The hydraulic system barely kept up when new and quickly deteriorated into inadequacy. Allis was at a crossroads to divert resources to engineer a clean sheet design and delay the 7000 series, or have a company build one for them. They chose the quick fix, and it showed. Build quality varied wildly between units. Some had misaligned frames, others had cabs that leaked in a drizzle. Only 1,033 units were built before AC developed their own 7,580. The 440 became an orphan too rare for parts support, too problematic to justify fixing. It proved that badge engineering rarely works in agriculture. Farmers buying an Allis-Chalmers wanted an Allis-Chalmers, not a repainted Steiger with a different engine. Most 440s ended their days as parts donors or scrap metal, forgotten footnotes in Allis-Chalmers' decline. Number 3, International Harvester 460. International Harvester's 460 arrived in 1958 with new styling, a new six-cylinder engine, and old problems. The larger engines were combined with essentially unaltered powertrain components of earlier models, producing immediate problems with reliability. IH rushed it to market to compete with new offerings from John Deere and Ford, and that haste proved costly. The drivetrain simply couldn't handle the engine's torque. Transmission stripped gears regularly, especially in lower ranges where torque multiplication was highest. Final drives carried over from the smaller Farmall H failed catastrophically. Bull gears shattered, axles twisted, and farmers found themselves with expensive lawn ornaments. The instability was genuinely dangerous. The narrow front end, inherited from earlier designs, couldn't handle the extra power and weight. Under heavy draft loads, the front end would unexpectedly rise, terrifying operators. Several rollover accidents were attributed to this instability, leading to lawsuits and damaged trust. In 1959, Harvester issued a widespread recall of all 460 and 560 model tractors due to a manufacturing flaw encountered out in the field. The recall attempted to beef up transmissions and final drives, but the damage was done. Farmers who'd run nothing but red paint for generations started shopping other colors. The 460 became a teaching moment for the entire industry. You can't just stuff a bigger engine into an existing chassis and expect success. Every component must be engineered for increased stress. About 35,000 were built, but many were traded quickly. The 460's failure contributed to IH's gradual loss of market share, a decline that ultimately proved terminal. Number 2, Ford 6000 Commander. Ford's 6000 Commander was supposed to revolutionize farming when it debuted in 1961. The star attraction was the Select O speed transmission, one of the industry's first power shift designs. It allowed the system to accumulate high-pressure oil for fast response no matter what speed the engine was running at. No clutching required, just move the lever and go. The Select O speed became Ford's nightmare. The transmission was incredibly complex, with multiple clutch packs, bands, and valves requiring perfect synchronization. Most likely, there are clutch packs and bands bad. These tractors are known to jump into gear and run over people. The safety issues were terrifying. Tractors would engage without warning, leading to serious accidents. The tractors would jerk noticeably when shifted from 4th to 5th gear, a quirk of the transmission's design. Repairs were astronomical. You're going to find that there's a bunch of experienced full-time tractor mechanics, even New Holland dealer mechanics, that don't understand that transmission. Many dealers simply refuse to work on them. Beyond the transmission, these tractors suffered chronic overheating, with cooling systems inadequate for heavy work. Oil leaks were constant companions. One frustrating design feature was that the engine fan belts had to go around the shaft off the front of the engine that drove the hydraulic pump. Changing the belts became a big job. Ford eventually addressed some issues, but the reputation was irreversibly damaged. The 6000 became Ford's albatross, a tractor that dealers couldn't sell and farmers feared. Even today, Select-O speed transmissions inspire dread in mechanics. The 6000 proved that revolutionary technology needs thorough testing before release, not paying customers as test pilots. Number 1. John Deere 2010. Claiming the top spot is a tractor so problematic it tarnished John Deere's golden reputation, the 2010. Part of the 1960 New Generation series that included successful models like the 3010 and 4010, the 2010 was the runt of the litter that should have been culled at birth. The hydraulic system on the JD 2010 was marginal at best and a pain to work on. That, coupled with the sleeve deck engine plate, was poorly designed, made the JD 2010 the poorest JD tractor built to date. The hydraulic pump buried in the tractor's belly was nearly inaccessible. The hydraulic pump can be removed out the bottom without splitting the tractor. I can take it out in less than 20 minutes. Going back in is a little longer. No need to split the tractor if you knew the secret. Most mechanics didn't. The engine's sleeve deck design was fundamentally flawed. Head gaskets failed repeatedly, sleeves dropped, and oil consumption was measured in gallons per day. The three-point hitch was so complex that many never worked properly from the factory. Overcomplicated PTO system, bad hydraulic system, sleeve deck style engine, and a ridiculous 3-point hitch that I don't think worked correct from the factory. Power steering failures were endemic. I'm sorry to inform you, but JD 2010 hydraulics don't have a very good history, nor does the rest of the tractor. The priority valve would stick, leaving operators without steering at critical moments. When farmers brought their 2010 S for repair, many dealers secretly provided loaner tractors, knowing the 2010 would return soon with new problems. 2010 did not get the reputation of being the worst tractor JD ever built for no good reasons. Even John Deere seemed embarrassed, quickly discontinuing parts support and pretending the 2010 never existed. Today, collectors are actually buying them, which other farmers find hilarious since they were total nightmares when on farms. The 2010 proved that even John Deere could build a complete disaster, remaining their most shameful creation. There you have it, 10 tractors that promised revolution but delivered frustration. These machines taught us that farming doesn't tolerate shortcuts, over-engineering, or half-baked innovation. Every failure pushed the industry forward, though, showing manufacturers what not to do. Today's reliable tractors exist because engineers learned from these expensive mistakes. Got your own tractor horror story? Drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear what iron gave you grief. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. We've got more agricultural history coming your way, including the tractors that got it right. Until next time, keep your oil clean and your bolts tight.